Thank you so much, Sjokz, Guldborg, and of course, Laure, with a great breakdown of just kind of how these two teams are coming into today. I, of course, Moishin, am joined by my Irish brethren. It's always good. It's always a bit of a weird one. I always get really nervous coming into this because I cast from my bedroom 90% of the time.
Without the crowd.
without the fantastic crowd, exactly, yeah. You just get imaginary ones, you know, just coming into it. But, of course, it is going to be BDS versus SK in this best of three. Winner is in a pretty strong position, but I think for BDS, we were thinking about it a little bit. They were coming into this so much stronger.
We'll have to see if they can keep it up as we get into pick and ban.
We all wait in anticipation of where these things are going to go. BDS going to be on the blue with SK on the red. And moving on to 13.6, not a lot is going to be changing in terms of priority, but we are going to be seeing, again, kind of, you know, a big, heavy emphasis on that bot side. We've been seeing it throughout all the other major regions. It is going to be about those hyper carries in the bot lane.
Yeah, especially when you look at Exakick, I don't think he's been able to find his footing as well. I mean, even I heard the desk talk about it, SK struggling, and I think for Exakick, getting your hands on something like, well, the Ahri that's off the board or a Xayah would definitely help you out in just setting yourself up there. And even things like the Aphelios and the Jinx starting to come back into that meta as well, setting up for that hyper carry. But see if Exakick can find that magic that we saw in Winter.
That's the big thing as well. Like BDS obviously on a massive upward trajectory and really kind of putting their stamp on the league a little bit. SK kind of having a little bit of a humbling moment at the end of the season, you know, losing 4 of the last 5 and really not finding the kind of right rhythm. So we'll see if they're able to kind of bounce back now. Obviously new patch, get themselves a couple of days to, or a week even, to kind of bring themselves into a new setup.
Yeah, I think though here with no jungle bans, oh actually I thought we were going to see the Xayah picked up immediately, but with the Vi taken off the board, I actually think you go Xayah here for Exakick. You got a great answer into the Vi, and we actually saw a big discussion that we had on the desk yesterday was this first pick Vi, how I think you have so many answers in the AD carry role, like the Sivir, the Xayah that can be done with. You've also got answers coming through the mid lane that you don't have to worry about. You can even take something like the Wukong from Markoon as well, which will work out well against this. So I think across the board, you're actually pretty happy with how this opening has gone for SK.
Yep, they go for the Xayah straight off the bat, and they are going to go exactly, wow, did you read the script without me? You read it, you always do. No, that's how you get ahead of the competition. But I mean, look, it is really one of those things, again, like, you know, the Vi does have very good single target CC to lock down someone, but like you said, the Xayah has so many ways of dealing with that, and the Wukong can just be that big initiator to kind of, you know, help out in those big 5v5 later on. So we'll see what the answer is going to be for BDS as they look towards that bot side. The Jinx has been something that we've been seeing a lot more internationally, kind of creeping back, and, you know, the more things change, the more they change, they stay the same.
The big question mark, though, is what she gets paired with, because you don't actually know what SK are going to go with on the opposite side. Probably see something like a Thresh here just to make sure the Jinx is safe. You've got that reposition tool, because I think your biggest worry is something like Nautilus coming through with that Xayah. A ton of easy lockdown for something like the Jinx, and you can play for these heavy dive styles, but it looks like BDS trying to counteract that already. They're going, hey, look, if you're going to go for something that's a bit more dive heavy, we'll go for Peel. It's not the Cassiopeia, it's going to be the Renata instead.
And Renata's fantastic into such a short range composition that we've already seen from the side of SK. You're thinking of Xayah, Wukong, they all kind of be very close in terms of you get the hostile takeover, the handshakes we've seen to be so impactful. One thing I will say though for Labrov, very squishy, very, very squishy, so you cannot be moving forward aggressively, or maybe it's not as aggressive as you would like depending on what's on the other team.
I will say the Labrov has had a spectacular split, so if there's anyone who will be able to pilot this Renata, it feels like Labrov definitely going to be in a good spot, try and link up with Sheo and see if you can find some early aggression, but it is a bit hard. Renata not really going to be in a great position to follow up on a Vi. Even the fact that you have kind of a kite back composition starting to come through here for BDS and you got a Vi in the mix, it does make it a little bit funky, with SK now going over towards the Ahri to see if they can try and kind of double down, honestly, on this ability to dive forward and see if they can pick off the Jinx.
And the Ahri and the Wukong is such a common combination right now. That kind of, you know, early game skirmishing power as well as just the single target CC. If you're able to get onto the backline with a Cyclone or maybe force out a flash and then land a Spirit Rush into a Charm, that's a lot of pressure being put onto Crownie. So really curious to see how SK are able to kind of, you know, continue to build this composition, because right now, I won't lie, it's looking pretty bog standard from both teams. We kind of know what this is from pretty much every other region.
Yeah, I'm curious to exactly how both both teams want to try and close this one out. For SK, they could be eyeing up something like a Malphite in that top lane for Relevant, or at least one of those big beefy tank champions, because that's where he's found most comfortable, and kind of fall back to what was their bread and butter in winter, which was play around that bottom side, make sure that we're all set up for success there. And I think that can help out quite a bit in just finding these big engages onto BDS, especially now as we see the Cassiopeia and the Lissandra band away. It feels like there's not a huge amount of options for BDS in that mid lane to have that opportunity to get the peel and the kite.
You talked about that Nautilus, so straight away we are going to see it coming out at the end of the second ban phase. First pick for SK as they come back into it. And again, good engage options available for SK. I like the roundness of their composition. It's very easy. It's very obvious what they want to try and do. They're not trying to, you know, get overly complicated with how their composition should work.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of the opposite on BDS's side, right? With the Olaf now taking... Adam has looked fantastic on the Olaf. I think it's definitely something that fits his wheelhouse, but the actual ability now to, you know, your top side kind of wants to run in and dive forward, whereas your bottom half kind of wants to kite back and peel. So I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag here for BDS, but I think if you're looking at SK, something like that Malphite could come through on the top side. Just go, hey, look, we're happy to just go all in, dive forward, and see if we can take these big team fights. Yeah,
it does mean that if you are going to get kind of a big, heavy engage on that top side, you will be putting a lot of eggs in the Exakick basket. You are looking to kind of be, okay. Ooh, a little bit of an OMG Shanji special coming in here just for me off the LPL, but a rumble in that top side.
I mean, something that got buffed coming in on 13-5, right? The fact that you get a ton of magic shred coming through on those harpoons makes it very simple to try and set up for these team fights. The Wukong and the Rumble, very, very good at being able to have that big melting pot for fights as well. So both these squads going to be looking to make sure they can find success in those team fights, but it definitely feels like, just from eyes on it, SK have a bit of an easier time in setting those ones up.
And I mean, there is just a giant target on Crownie right now. There is just so many things, and if he gets caught by one piece of CC, there's not a lot else for him to do. The equalizer, the ultimate from the Nautilus, the Cyclone, the Ahri kind of moving around the fight to get on top of you. A lot of pressure here now on the BDS AD carry.
And at least for BDS, there's a lot of pressure being in first place as well. SK has been struggling, but this seems like a composition that they're more than happy to operate on. We're just going to have to see if they can find that success they had in winter, or whether BDS can keep this streak alive that they found in spring.
Crowd's ready. The teams are locked. As we continue to see how these two teams will do. It's going to be a pretty big game one. We jump onto the Rift. And Dagda, I've already set my expectations for this early game pretty low. I come from the LPL where it's a lot more action in the early game, but not so much here in Europe. You tend to have a little bit more calming 10, 50, you know, a lot more feeling out of each other before things really hit the fan.
Yeah, but I will say for BDS, they've been pretty good at getting that early aggression in, and I'd be expecting the same. I mean, third place when it comes to goal difference of 14. Like, this is a team that definitely likes to get off the bat early, play through strong lanes, and once more, it feels like they have a lot of that, where they can use these push-in lanes, open up Sheo to go for that counter jungling that he's been very, very good at, and just get in the face of SK. But we'll have to see if SK can respond with Irrelevant going towards that Rumble in the top side. Very exciting to see his first time ever playing the Rumble in that top side. And also, I mean, a long, long time since we've seen the Rumble coming into LEC.
Yeah, I believe it was Spring Playoffs 2022 from Odomine. I believe my producer said in my ear. Was a loss, unfortunately, for Odo in that particular setup, but again, something we've been seeing a lot more kind of popping up right now is this kind of carry top lane, kind of, you know, give yourself that advantage. And the Olaf will have kill pressure. And we talked about, you know, if Adam can get this one going, if you can get on the undertow after undertow, the Rumble will struggle into this. So it's going to be about the kind of execution here for Irrelevant in that top side.
just early stages before you really hit level 3 and you're able to manage your heat effectively as Rumble. Adam will have a good advantage here, being able to, as you say, push, use the undertows. But as this starts to go on, I think Irrelevant will be perfectly fine and just kind of clear out waves with the Flame Spitter and make sure that he's just becoming a nuisance in team fights. Because one of the big things you're looking at, as we said, was, you know, Adam and Sheo want to try and dive in and be super effective, but you can struggle if you end up having Crownie and Nuke split off from the rest of the team because of a well-placed equalizer. So I think a lot of coordination is going to be the key for BDS going into these fights.
Of course, Laure was on the analyst desk talking about Sheo, you know, the creative path in getting that early information. And honestly, we can see it right now. You know, taking the red buff immediately into a full clear top side. Mightn't even be a full clear, to be perfectly honest, but already we're seeing BDS using that early advantage that they're trying to get the lanes going, trying to figure out where this jungle is going to be of Markoon and make sure they're either not getting caught out or they can make their own proactive plays.
Well, BDS are very aware of where Markoon is at the moment. They had the ward got the blue buff to spot out, that being cleared, and now the ward and the red buff coming through from Adam as well. We'll know that at least Markoon is on this top half, but more than likely just going to make his way back towards the bot side, which does work out well for Adam. Sheo here just to make sure that he can continue shoving in these waves and continue the pressure, which is so necessary for an Olaf in these early stages.
For BDS, like such a new organization to the League of Legends scene, to the LEC scene as well, is that they have been kind of on the up and up after a very shaky kind of debut year, but I'm going to hold my point on that, as we do have both junglers thinking about doing something topside. Very volatile. One kill could sway the difference.
Yeah, I don't see this really happening. I think Markoon more here because he knows Sheo's chances are is on the top lane and just making sure that Irrelevant can actually crash this wave. And you see now Markoon will end up moving down to spot out Sheo on this crab, but Sheo immediately spotting means that he won't really be able to contest. But I'm keeping my eyes on Markoon as this game goes on, because SK have been fairly shaky in their last set of games, and I think a huge portion of that is because Markoon hasn't been able to have the same impact as usual and hasn't been able to help out Exakick as much as we saw in Winter.
Yeah, we can kind of see the last few games that it's not been great for SK. They've won one, and that was against XL, who were already knocked out. So definitely on a little bit of a downward slump, shall we say. And for SK, this is about kind of bouncing back. You're in a best of 3. It's no longer just a one game and done. We'll stop myself for a second. We are going to see the cleanse have to come in. Exakick gets hit up by the roots, though. Brings his own route back, keeps hold of his flash. But already we're seeing that pressure come down that bot side. I
mean, really nice job there, being able to get that route to set up for the play. But again, this is kind of something we've seen from SK, is that Exakick has started to get focused significantly more by opposition and trying to make sure he's uncomfortable already with the cleanse burnt, with the low health bar, and good hook from DOS though. But looks like Markoon ain't really in a position to follow up on this.
No, DOS might just keep going forward onto him, but yeah, just to make sure that his AD carry can look for those extra little bit of CS and stuff like that. And honestly, I have to agree, like we had a look at a quick look at the stats from Winter to Spring. It's a very different story here for Exakick, very much not getting the kind of time of day as he was in previous split.
Yeah, and I think it's a twofold problem, right? I think Markoon has not been able to get into this bot lane as he used to and have that big impact, even giving a little bit more resources towards Irrelevant, especially when he's playing on things like the Jax. But as well, it's just been a hard focus from enemy junglers to this bot side, even from mid laners as well, to make sure that Exakick can't get up and rolling. And we're starting to see that late game prowess that we with SK, where they can fall back on, we'll look for picks, we'll go for team fights, and that can be our bread and butter. Hasn't quite been there because Exakick has been falling behind.
Well, for the moment, he is technically behind, but we'll let him away with that. It's only 100 gold, but it's again, it's just kind of been feeling out for these two guys. Again, it's a best of 3, as we can see now. The roam from DOS alongside Markoon, but Sheo is here, and you can see the Renata not too far off either, so maybe we're going to see some fireworks up on this top side. The Flame Spitter kind of pushing in Irrelevant, now going to get ghosted upon. He flashes away, he doesn't have his equalizer just yet. They flash in on top of him. Irrelevant needs one more auto, and he will get it. He hit level 6, but it shall not save him. Now Sheo knows that he is dead to rights. 2-1 to SK.
And this is a very similar story to what we saw between SK and BDS in week 1 of the split. Hard focus from SK towards this top side with Irrelevant on a carry to make sure they can shut down Adam, and already starting to pay dividends as Nuke now in trouble.
A little bit of trouble. Labrov is still here. Spirit Rush still available. Going to put the Unleash power there just to say to Sertuss, look, I've got some damage too. Nice little skill check R button. And everyone just kind of backs themselves away. But I love the roam from DOS as well. I love the fact that he got himself out there and is linking up with Markoon.
And I think that's what you need to do here, especially when you're up against the Jinx. She's just going to continuously shove in the wave. With the Renata, not really much of a chance for you to try and go aggressive. So unlocking DOS, trying to get him out of the map, does seem to be the way forward. And we're just going to be able to catch in the replay here. DOS, unfortunately, though, not really able to do much, I will say, in this equation. Didn't actually want to burn the flash to try and get involved. So Adam does fall, Irrelevant overheated, so not actually able to have any more of those shields coming through. And Sheo then decides to just hop underneath the tower to make sure DOS can't actually get that assist.
Yeah, DOS maybe could have flashed, gone for a hook just to get him away, maybe save his top laner. You know, if buts and maybes, it's a game of inches in the end of the day, but you still get the 2 kills. But with all that pressure on the top side, means the resets come in for BDS, and they have got bot and mid lane pressure. DOS now going to utilize that flash that he kept from earlier on and keeps himself alive.
Hey, he's going to be happy that he held on to that one, especially being able to walk away. Probably didn't need to be in that area, to be perfectly honest. You're more than likely going to see BDS on that dragon, but at least it will be able to escape. I think the big point, though, is BDS again continuing their dragon control. They've been very, very good at getting these early objectives, being able to then play towards it in the later portion of the game. And I think this is where, again, we're going to see BDS trying to utilize Crownie in those late game fights to try and have that peel with Nuke and Labrov to actually allow this Jinx to carry.
It's been a fun adaptation as well, looking at the kind of AD carry meta throughout the world and how the Jinx has come back into it, because, you know, it's not really a carry that benefits from that, you know, IE rush or the Bloodthirster second or anything like that. You do still need to go for a Zeal item second, but it's just kind of the way the meta has shifted. It's just feel like, yes, you're going into hyper carry. She's always going to be in that conversation.
Especially as you start to see kind of tankier top laners, or even just the ability to continue shoving with the longer range and the Jinx makes it a little bit easier to try and set up for plays. But DOS is actually the one that's utilizing the push with the Xayah in the bot lane to again move up towards this top side, make sure that they can secure this early Rift Herald. Irrelevant has the push in top, so this should be a fairly simple pickup for SK. And if BDS are trying to move through these choke points to contest, that can be very dangerous for both the Wukong ult and that equalizer as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, you already got Exakick kind of halfway moving up, looking to see if he needed to cover it. Realizes he doesn't. Sertuss is going to be able to get that wave in mid lane as well, so we'll see. Bit of a move down towards the bot side, though. You can see that there's 3 members of BDS. They're not willing to let this one go to the wayside. They've already lost the objective, but yeah, I like this from Exakick. He recognizes he is very much on the weak side and the police are coming for him.
Yeah, great call from Exakick. Just, hey, look, I'm going to end up losing way more if I stick around, so backs off. Now the rest of SK are here to help, and BDS might be stuck here. No flashes on Sheo. Will be able to queue over the wall, and Labrov forced to burn his own.
Yeah, Labrov recognizing, wait a minute, I don't have a dash. You can't just leave me here. There's a bit of an unfortunate deal there. So we've seen now both supports kind of having themselves in unfortunate positions as both top laners now find themselves in a 1v1. The equalizer comes down as well as the overheat. The Ignite's been ticking onto Adam. He's got some extra movement, but he's not got the damage. And that is the power of the Rumble, the shred on the magic resistance, and you just put down your overheat.
And that's the big one there, especially with the Hex Drinker for Adam. He's already planning to try and make a play happen, but now look on the bot side.
Yeah, gonna see them now go for a 2v3. As DOS does get taken out, Crownie just perfectly set up there to throw in the rocket. Now Exakick taken very low, but hasn't been taken down. Ghost was pushing on Crownie.
And you can see the dividends paying off on opposite sides of the map, right? A whole heap of attention put into Irrelevant in these early stages. Now he's got the 1v1 kill against Adam, but as a result, BDS have been able to get these advantages in the bot side of the map, and now they're punishing Exakick. And this is what we're talking about for SK. Exakick not being able to get off to the best of starts in the last few games, and now teams punishing once more. But this is just a great job from Irrelevant. There's one harpoon, manages to get the second harpoon off as well, so you're shredding a ton of that magic resist off the Hex Drinker immediately. And Irrelevant there, able to pick up the 1v1 as we're even going to get the pro view here, just adding insult to injury.
I mean, he just knew how to play this matchup. This is showing a really good understanding from Irrelevant. He didn't try and throw the equalizer somewhere else. He said, no, right on top of me, because if you're going to be the Olaf, you're going to have to put damage on me physically. So really like to see that kind of level of understanding there from Irrelevant. And this is the Flame Spitter with the Rocket Belt now, so he's got himself a decent amount of early game damage.
And the thing is, this is where it starts to become even more terrifying when you start to look at 2 item spikes for SK. If you're able to move this Rumble now down towards Dragon fights, towards Rift Herald fights, you've got that Cyclone, that combo is going to be very, very difficult for BDS to deal with. So, especially if SK can try and keep control around these objectives, choke points are not going to be a fun time for BDS.
Oh, Sheo, he has to flash away. Cyclone and the equalizer was very much threatening his life, but he got the scuttle, and that's all that matters.
The thing though is, no flash now for Dragon in 50 seconds, right? Cooldown for Rumble Ultimate should be back up and available for that, so you'll be fine. Cyclone won't be around, but it does mean that with some of these big summoner spells burnt, maybe SK can look for a pick beforehand.
Oh, they're looking for one right now. There's the charm coming in. No Cyclone, remember, but you've got yourself the cease and desist. There's going to be the ultimates comboing in. They trade it back 1-for-1. Good flash from Sertuss means he does not get hit by the Vault Breaker, but it is going to be a trade back of 1.
And now pushing bot side, you still end up getting the jungler as well, so you should have BDS now being able to take position for this next dragon. And again, Exakick and DOS just being continuously shoved under the tower. The Kraken Slayer already picked up a ton of plates as well. Crownie is in prime position to step up and be a carry in this game.
Again, the gold is even, but as you mentioned earlier, kind of where it's distributed is going to be the big difference making there. Crownie way above everybody else. Funny enough, Markoon actually picking up a couple of those kills means that he is a massive point of power as well, but Exakick kind of dealing with a lot of issues in terms of the gold department.
Well, I need to see Markoon try and use this Rift Herald as well if he wants to try and add to that gold that he's picked up, but good chompers now, keeping SK at bay. You've got no Rumble here, and you've got no engage for Markoon, so BDS just get to walk away as Markoon now going to move bot side to plant this Rift Herald.
Yeah, Adam was already covering Relevant as well on the roam, so he's happy to bump the Ragnarok, but we're going to go bot side as we already see there. They're going to try and jump in on top of Sheo. No flash on the Vi, but no real commitment to come in here. There's going to be Shelly getting to drop down, and that's only going to be plates towards Markoon. There's Irrelevant and Adam trying to see if they can dodge each other out. There's going to be a little bit of damage. Oh my god, Irrelevant needs one more auto, and he's going to go down. Just enough there from Adam, and this is how quickly that matchup in top lane can sway.
Revenge for Adam is going to be a happy day for him as he manages to take down the Rumble, but on the bot side, as you rightly pointed out, Oisin, the fact that Exakick didn't get any of those plates is going to be heartbreaking for SK. They would have loved to force BDS out towards mid lane and make sure that the AD carry was getting something back, but unable to do so means that Markoon going to really need to step up to be a carry because Exakick just falling further and further behind now in this bot side.
Yeah, you can see it as well there. I got 1100 gold. It means the Kraken Slayer gets finished up for Crownie. You're still kind of dealing with the components of it now for Exakick, and this is starting to kind of getting a little bit rough here for SK in that bot side. And honestly, it's still, relatively within their range to kind of take this as the rocket does go by. It will just stop the back, but again, the Rumble will kind of, still be relevant, but it's not going to be as good. Again, it's the reason why we have hyper carries in the bot lane. There's a reason why there's so much emphasis on that role right now, because it shows in results.
Yeah, it definitely did get nerfed coming in though on 13-6, right? Lethal tempo taking a hit. You end up like with dragons being nerfed as well, so they're not as strong, but certainly Jinx a threat in those later game fights. Again though, it does come down to execution here for BDS, because I don't think they have the best of front lines to try and take these fights.
No, they're going to look for one right now. No flash on Sheo, but he has to use the cease and desist. There's going to be the hostile takeover doing just that. Markoon can't really get a finish off on the kill. Sheo gets another shield, and Sertuss goes golden, but it's only to delay the inevitable. Nuke comes in and does just that.
They tried to take the fight immediately, but you don't have Exakick in position. But now, looking for one more.
They're going to go right straight onto Labrov, who goes down. No bailout for him. That's just going to be a trade back. It's more of a pick than anything else. But again, SK, it feels like they're trying to, accelerate themselves into advantages, which they're just not there.
It's just a bit of desperation from them. There's no need to try and force that fight as quickly as you needed to. Wait for Exakick to get into position. Instead, ends up as a 3 versus 4, and they just don't have enough in the tank. You'll see it here, right? Exakick only just coming into lane on the top side. So you end up with Labrov here. You've got Sheo, who ends up engaged on a great ultimate to counteract the engage from DOS. Beautiful setup from Labrov on the ultimate as well. So this entire time, you just have an AD carry dip with Crownie actually in a position to be able to follow up there.
And then it's just pretty easy. Honestly, this is, they were looking for Crownie. They got Labrov, so Labrov doing his due diligence and his supportal duties, covering for his AD carry. But yeah, I mean, it's not a million miles away now for SK, but it does feel like it's BDS kind of in control. Despite these plays kind of coming in on top of them, they're, not panicking. They're not throwing everything else at this. They're just taking it in their stride.
And this is the BDS comfort zone, right? Have 3 strong lanes. Crownie set up to be your late game carry around these objectives. Dragons fully under their control. They even got the second Rift Herald there as well. So now you have the opportunity to, okay, we're going to push mid, move with Nuke down to bot lane, crack open that turret, get even more gold for Crownie, or even if you look at where they are now, potentially roam Crownie around the map to mid lane to crack open that mid lane structure with that strong AD carry that you have.
Well, good news there for SKs. They were able to pick up the first turret and give all that local gold as well to Exakick. So he's actually not being too bad in fairness to himself. He's kind of caught himself back up, has got himself a kill, and you know, only a couple of hundred gold behind now, which isn't the worst place in the world to be. And SK, they just need to kind of rein it in just a little bit. You know, kind of be cohesive as a unit and make sure they're not just running in like we saw in that last engage.
And I think one of the things that we saw a lot from SK at the start of the split was how good they were at, hey, we're going to play for vision around Baron, around Dragons, look for picks, and I think this is a composition where they can certainly try and do that. And when you look at BDS, they have been a bit messy when it comes to setting up their Dragons, like playing for side lanes to get more of a threat on the map before they try and force objective control. And we're seeing it a little bit now here as well, where all lanes in favor of SK, so BDS plonked the Rift Herald down in mid to try and force SK to defend mid, so then they can get control over Dragon.
They love the Rift Herald here, don't they? They just absolutely love it. It's always good to hear.
Here we go. SK gonna have to try and force this. Dragon in 10 seconds, they're going in blind. Markoon and Irrelevant though, that's the combo we're looking at.
Well, you've already lost the Ragnarok and you haven't lost any major ultimates here from the side of SK. That's a big tool no longer to be able to put pressure on Exakick.
This is very scary as well for BDS. You don't want to be caught in the pit if this combo end up coming off from SK, which is why they're playing so far back.
Yeah, you're going to see the handshake come in. They get a knockback on Dots, but there's a good equalizer. Dots will still go down to the rocket. They're going to try and see if they can take out Sheo on the backside as he's forced to flash away. The Unleashed power is onto the clone. That was a great decoy, but they've run straight in onto Sertuss. He gets no chance, but they're putting down the feathers. The shutdown at the 2 for 2. Exakick lets the feathers fly. Oh, that zap was almost exceptional, but it's a 2 for 2 in the end. You feel like BDS are still coming out that bit stronger.
They just managed to eke away from the engage from SK. Very spread. Here we go.
Markoon, you don't need to be there, and you will be shut down. Nuke picks up his second kill, and again, just small little differences in while making such huge, fast, you know, mistakes here from the side of SK.
And you'll see it here, right, as we start to roll into this. Great hook from Dots, but look at where Markoon and Sertuss are. They're way in the back line. They're not actually able to follow up on this. That's when you throw out the Rumble ult from the top lane and just make sure you can actually get some damage down here. Sertuss now finally in a position to make things happen, but great ultimate again coming through from Labrov, disrupting Irrelevant to Markoon. That's your front line gone. So Exakick trying to make the hero play, but there's just way too much kite back and range on BDS for this Xayah to try and do much without help.
I mean, that's the big thing now with Crownie over the wall, having those rockets, being able to kind of just help out Sheo now. 3-0 and 3 on the Jinx, really rocketing themselves towards a 2-3 item spike. And BDS look comfortable. They're going to be the ones on Soul now in 5 minutes time.
The trade for this is SK trying to get vision around that top side, and we talked about how they do like to try and look for these picks, and maybe that's an opportunity for them to come back in this game. But for BDS, phenomenal stars to game number 1. The fact again that they picked SK coming into this, they're kind of showing why they felt comfortable in this matchup.
Yeah, well, Labrov shows himself, dodges away from the dredge line. Don't know if he really wanted to try and bait that one out as they look to try and get control around this mid lane. Exakick and Irrelevant should be able to put down some decent damage, if not for the many rockets of Crownie and this Runan's Hurricane. Again, it's not that big of a gold lead. It's only about 1,500, but it does feel like BDS just having so much more control around these fights. They're not going in, as we saw, again, 2 times in a row, you know, kind of half, you know, kind of committing, half not committing.
But the biggest problem here is that SK haven't been playing around their strength of the map. They invested all these resources into Irrelevant, but Irrelevant's running Ignite. So if Irrelevant hasn't already made his way to the fight, he's not going to be involved. Whereas when you look across at BDS, all that gold had gone into Crownie, now sitting on 2 items on this Jinx. So everywhere that BDS fought, they had their advantage in the AD carry, whereas SK were never bringing Irrelevant across. So it's just that where you've invested your resources and how they're now paying dividends has been heavily in favor of BDS. Now BDS going to start getting their waves in favor, so they can actually look again to start taking control and get vision set up for this Baron.
It's the big thing as well, is that, you know, the Baron control is so pivotal, because you look at BDS's composition, they can destroy it so quickly. They can just get it down so damn fast, and if you don't call it, if you don't know straight away, it could be gone before you even get there to try and start an engage. So now SK, you're 3 dragons down, you're about 1,500 gold down as well. You're not out of this one just yet. You've got plenty to kind of work with, but BDS kind of showing already in the first 20 minutes of this best of 3 why they're the #1 regular season team.
and it's on SK to see if they can try and bite back. At least the moment getting good wave control. You can see getting that top tower down just off of side lane minion control with Sertuss shoving in that wave, and BDS not able to answer because of where they're positioned in the map. So at least that's something back, but it's still a long stretch with how strong BDS are looking right now.
We're probably going to see some posturing for the next while. No one's really going to be fully committing unless we see a pretty big mistake until probably 2 minutes 40 is when I imagine we're going to get a pretty big fight. Or maybe we won't. Maybe, you know, SK go for a full trade. You know, we've seen it plenty of times where teams kind of trade that Dragon for a Baron, try and get themselves back into the game, and you'd be happy as Laure of BDS are able to kind of get that Baron for themselves.
Yeah, I think that's what SK are trying to set up for, but honestly, you can just have Adam really solo at a Dragon. He doesn't really need to be initially a part of this. If Crownie and Nuke are just able to use their range for a little while. Good ward there, spotting out a lot of SK's movements, so at least still SK not quite doing their due diligence and trying to help themselves out as trying to see the pick.
Yeah, putting on the equalizer does get Labrov down to below about half his HP, but look, I'm going to be honest with you, the equalizer cooldown is so damn low, it doesn't really make that big of a difference in the long term.
BDS, though, considering just going straight over towards this Baron with that ultimate down, but not really a huge amount used, as you said, so instead just going to start moving up here, start to establish more and more vision control, but this is really nice from BDS. I just think at the moment having Crownie in mid to shove that wave would help out just a little bit more, continuing to just play off of 2 lanes, make sure you're pushing SK back so you can establish vision that little bit deeper, because the moment you can see it's quite shallow, just sitting just past river, but not actually spawning out too much where SK are.
Yeah, you can even see it in bot lane as well. Like BDS did their homework. They said, cool, we got vision control in the Baron, we have control around mid lane, now we just move up, we have lane pushing in bot, we have lane pushing in top, we can get an objective from this, and that's going to force Irrelevant, which you highlighted earlier, who does not have a teleport. Yes, he's going to be very big when he finishes off this Void Staff, but if he's not with the team, then you're losing out a lot of that, you know, initial power.
Yeah, I think the big one, though, is that for BDS, as long as you can get some sort of push here, you'll be relatively all right. Like if you're able to, if you're actually able to get like push in mid and in top, well then you can start to like dot vision control all in those areas. But the biggest problem is that they're not really willing to separate out at the moment. They're very worried about where Markoon is, or maybe like some sort of flash engage from DOS, but I really think at the moment with the amount of range and the wave clear they have on Nuke and Crownie, they can actually try and play these side lanes and keep SK at bay.
All right, key to note before this fight, there is a stopwatch on Crownie, there is a stopwatch on Markoon. No one else has stopwatch, but everyone is dealing with a full platter of summoners, basically minus the TP, but we'll see a bit of a stun coming in. Exakick losing his cleanse straight away. You have to be so aware of this Scatter the Weeks.
Still has a flash, still has the ult though, so should be relatively okay. It's just the problem is SK are going into this dark, and again, we talked about how SK would love to try and play around choke points with the feathers, the ultimate from Markoon, the equalizer, but they're really just not getting that opportunity with how BDS is spread out right now.
And not only that, you have the Infernal Rift. It kind of opens up that map just that little bit more. Nuke steals it away, says thank you very much. That is my blue buff, and the Dragon has been started. They don't know it's been started just yet. They see 3 people kind of keeping this one away. They're kind of soloing it off. I think SK are way too late to this party. This Dragon is going to be secured. That's going to be Soul, an Infernal Soul at just after 24 minutes.
And the fact that you are playing a composition that still has a ton of scaling to come through with Crownie is going to be really, really good for BDS. At this stage, it just feels like SK have kind of watched this game pass them by, taking poor fights in the early stages, now not really having the vision control they want to try and set up for picks, and BDS cool, calm, and collected, just looking to close out game number 1.
I mean, it's just that simple as well. You can see Exakick, look, he's done a very good job to get himself back into it, but that Jinx is just getting scarier and scarier. And Irrelevant, who was right up there at the start, is now down the bottom 3. He's chilling with the supports.
And there's not much that he can really do. He started off, as you say, fantastically, but unable to try and play side lanes because Adam would be able to chase him down in those longer lanes, trying to consistently be drawn into these fights, but not actually able to pick up the gold or in these grouped situations. Labrov, though.
Labrov gets charmed, but the Scatter the Week is good. They're going to pop down the ultimate onto Crownie, try and separate him out from the fight. DOS gets jumped on by Adam, and he is dead. Markoon can't make much else work, but he does get the Syndra now. The Jinx is getting excited. Crownie's on the hunt. They haven't found Sertuss, but Crownie has a feeling he's somewhere in their own jungle. You've got the 1v1 back in the top lane, and Adam asserts his dominance on this Olaf pick.
And that's Baron for BDS. They can immediately move over there. Great opportunity there for BDS to be able to turn that one around. Relevant, the ultimate wasn't quite in a position where it really was threatening or cutting people off, so BDS find the chase and find the kills.
That's the big thing with the Rumble, is that if you cannot get these ultimates down, if you cannot find the right angle, they just feel a bit like nothing. It just feels like they don't do anything in the big team fights, and this Jinx is getting out of control.
And this is where, at least SK, I like the idea. Catch Labrov, see if you can play around this choke point, but the Rumble ultimate goes on to Crownie the backline. He just gets to walk around it, and because you have the rest of SK who've gone so deep to try and make this play work, Crownie's really not cut off from this fight, so the Rumble ult not getting the work, not really working alongside the Wukong ultimate either, and then Exakick finds himself on the business end of the damage from BDS.
And Irrelevant finds himself on the business end of an axe as goes straight down on top of his head. That's going to be the Red Bull Baron power play now for BDS, and they've just skyrocketed this goal lead. It was only about 1,000, maybe 2,000 at best. It's now gone up to 5.
And this sucks as SK, because trying to push out these Baron creeps when you've got super long range on Crownie, Nuke as well, being able to just attempt to hit these Scatter the Weak, see if you can pick someone off. Adam as well, just going to continuously shove in these minions in the mid lane to open up space as well. So this becomes very dangerous for SK, especially since in a second, Labrov can just throw out that ultimate if you try and go for those engages.
Well, you've lost a fair bit of summoners, but you've got yourself the exhaust and the barrier. Labrov does get caught by the Everfrost, but doesn't get hit by the charm. That's a little bit of a misplay there from Sertuss, you got to feel. Rocket goes right between the points, or posts even, for 3 points. And SK, yeah, like you said, they're just going to have to try and call for these, you know, side lanes, because they haven't got the engage. They can't get on top of people, but they also can't cover all lanes at all times.
And I think there was a basic call of like, hey, look, do we try and all in on bot side, or do we try and all in on Adam? They try to go for bot, and it's costing them now. As again, bot lane tower going to be taken.
Yeah, that's going to be the baits cracked open on the bot side. That's inhibitor number 1. Almost certain to fall with it. They've got the minions in mid lane as well. Sertuss trying to use the Orb of Deception to see if he can maybe get rid of these minions, but it's just so difficult right now. There's just not really a lot you can do as SK with this Baron buff still going. You just have to kind of sit there and watch.
The streak seems to be continuing for SK, a team that started off so well and went to be such high hopes, but unfortunately for them, as we got later in, it seems teams have kind of figured them out. Keep Markoon in check, prevent Exakick from being able to pop off, and now BDS seem to have their number after losing to them at the start of the split. They know exactly how they want to play this one out.
You're looking for a miracle hook from DOS that kind of goes into a full wombo combo, everything landing on top of Crownie, but I want to say Crownie's pretty decent at his positioning this year and hasn't really been caught out like that.
Yeah, but if you do a quick little look here, 1, 2, 3 stopwatches that are there. So the second you even try and find that big pick, it's just never going to work out. This is where, again, SK, it's kind of a case of, okay, this game's gotten out of control. What do we try and fix coming into game number 2? Because I actually like that they end up getting the Xayah. I think Xayah has been doing work in this game, but I think putting more resources down into that bot side so you can actually play around something like the Nautilus, if you're going to take this aggressive champion and the Xayah, shut down this Jinx in the early stages. But unfortunately, the resources being given towards Irrelevant at the top side really haven't come back to actually give much to SK in this game.
And Crownie finishing off the Infinity Edge as well. This guy is gonna hurt because you don't really have you don't have a Sion, you don't have a Cassante, you don't have someone who can just kind of stand there in the top lane and or front line and take this. Even the Nautilus is going to be shredded down by a lot of this damage. And speaking of damage, they're gonna look to try and get a support and jungle combination here on top of Relevant. He cannot trade back the kill onto Labrov as he gets hand shook away, and that is just as easy as it is. And honestly, that exact kill right there kind of spells exactly how this game has gone for the side of SK.
And now BDS just get to shove in on top side. Last remaining inhibitor, there's no real pressure. You got Adam escorting minions in the mid lane to make sure that they can actually start to wail away on these Nexus turrets and draw SK away. Charm lands, but got not much else here for SK.
Yep, you can see the hook just go wide as well. As you mentioned, Adam was escorting the minions into that mid lane to give himself an angle as well. They're going to jump it on top of Markoon. Good charm here on the Sheo. Means he's going to have to use his stopwatch. My God, that was a hell of a lot of damage, and it's not going to stop either. Your feathers may fly, but you are being turned into KFC, my son. And that is going to be SK kind of rolling over as BDS continue how they left the regular split and looking just as good in game number 1.
And you can hear the French crowd here, happy as Laure with BDS. That was a fantastic game that pad the stats in a negative way as they now finish off the Nexus.
Yeah, Crownie doesn't care. You got the win. Stats are just stats, and that is going to be a dominant game 1 for BDS.
from start to finish, BDS had full control, pushing mid, bot, making sure that Adam had control over that top side in the early stages as well. And even with that early pressure towards Irrelevant, Adam still had to turn it around. This was a statement performance from BDS saying, hey, look, we got everything that we wanted to and we're able to run away with it.
And look, you know, SK, they tried something. They brought out the Rumble. They tried to see if they could make something a bit different and try and go for something that's a little bit more, you know, I wouldn't say off-kilter, but definitely something that's going to be trying to, you know, go top, not bot. It just never really did anything past the first few minutes. They got a couple of kills and that was it.
But that's the thing, right? That was what worked for them at the start of the split. They play the Jax, they play around that top side, shut down Adam, and that was kind of what helped lend them into that role that they had against BDS at the start. But unfortunately, just wasn't the case here and came back to bite them.
Yeah, well, we're going to send it back over to the analyst desk to break that game down a little bit more.
Thank you so much. Indeed, great cast also, by the way, to kick us off. But it was BDS that was much stronger, following along the lines of what was set out here on the analyst desk at the beginning of the day, being that BDS should be the favorites with what they've shown from the regular season, and they didn't miss a beat.
I agree on this, and especially when you look at the draft and the way they prepared for this game, this is exactly what I was waiting for on the side of BDS, because in a meta in which you're going to have these hyper-scaling AD carries, I'm not surprised to see Crownie go for the Jinx, even though it shouldn't maybe be the focus champion that we want to see on the bot lane. For me, it makes sense, but it was hard for Crownie when you think of the draft, because they have a lot of options to get him. The Nautilus, the Rumble, the Ahri, the Wukong, lots of skirmish potential in the early game, but at the end of the day, BDS drafted exactly for Crownie to feel safe and feel empowered with the Jinx.
And it's also just the most BDS draft at all, right? Like, there's nothing new here. Crownie back on Jinx. All right, cool. Labrov on the Renata. All right, I've seen that one before. Adam on the Olaf, cool. The only thing I was like, Sheo with the first one, Jinx into a Xayah, that seems a bit suspicious, but they still made it work either way. He just never ulted the Xayah, and Crownie just cleaned up whoever Sheo went on, and yeah, it was just really cookie cutter clean from them.
Yeah, I know. I love
it's a tongue twist. I need to stop doing it.
No, go for it.
Okay, cookie cutter clean, boom.
There you go. And we saw the Rumble come out. Now, I, for one, am happy to see kind of different champions in the top lane. Of course, we were expecting the Olaf, but it is going to be a difficult game. Now, results-based analysis, obviously, after the initial kills, it went badly, but did you expect it to evolve as such and him to lose the matchup to the Olaf, like, pretty early on in that game and then being... It was really hard for him to impact the team fight.
It looked really good for Irrelevant in the beginning, and it seemed like SK Gaming had a plan as well where they actually wanted to put resources into Irrelevant. DOS did a really good job of having a better roam timing than Labrov did. Labrov was quite often in mid lane misreading the map, so DOS actually got an advantage on the top side. What the problem was for SK was when they had to translate the top lane lead elsewhere on the map. Rumble kept going mid, never really went down towards the bottom side, and while he didn't have the TP, it also made it even harder for him to join the team in the later stages of the game. So they put themselves in a way where Irrelevant had to get something done on the Rumble, and it was really hard for him to translate that lead.
But I still think it was a really good idea, because when you see a champion like Olaf, you know that it's going to be decided in the very first skirmishes
and
how they're going to push the lane. And I really love the fact that they put an emphasis on top lane, send DOS over there to try and get the best advantage. And we got some very Adam moments on the top lane, especially roaming around the equalizer like this. But at the end of the day, it's still... and not an easy comp to execute, especially when you're not going to be able to find this clutch points for team fight, especially for the Rumble to be set up in the best way. So
that's a great point, and you see it that okay, we need to fight in those choke points. We need to let it happen, but very early on in the game, down by it's happening to me too now. You've infected me.
I'm sorry.
By the bot brush, where they go in with full confidence before setting up the dragon, going for that fight, but Crownie is completely untouched, and this is for me where they actually start losing the game.
And to me, it speaks especially on how BDS has been smart with the draft here. We see it, especially if Crownie gets hit by any type of CC, it's doomed for him. And this is when he can't get activated with the Jinx, but the way BDS has been fighting around him and protecting him every step of the way, to me, proves the fact that they knew exactly what they were doing with this comp, and this is why they chose Jinx instead of any other AD carry here.
Yeah, and at the end of it, Labrov had a little happy moment, you know. It's still some of the mistakes we see, I think, from BDS. It wasn't as clean up as a game as you would have liked. Adam dying in top lane, Labrov with the small ones as well. But that's the thing, right? We're not striving for perfection with our teams here.
Are we not?
We are striving for perfection.
We are, just kidding. But you're going to break something down that also was less than perfect, unfortunately.
Well, I actually think that it was really interesting to take a look at something that was quite basic in terms of normal League of Legends, which is objective setup and how we approach the Drakes. In this instance, we have right here, it's actually BDS, despite being ahead, as you can see in the gold lead right now, it's not by a lot, but it is still ahead. They're a little bit late to the Drake. You can see the vision control that SK has gathered for themselves. It's very good and offensive. But what I want to highlight is actually how BDS gets control back of the Drake once again. Bot lane will be pushed in, which allows Crownie to have move, enjoy the rest of the team. They stack up as a unit. And I actually think here as well, you can see SK, they're forfeiting a lot of their resources here. They're not actually in a position to defend their vision that they have set up for themselves. Irrelevant is up on the top side, and that makes it very difficult for them because there are only 3 members gathered around here, while all of BDS will have easy access to join the fight for vision. So as we continue here, they also have the extra ace up their sleeve, which is that Rift Herald, which SK is then forced to respond to. And then all of a sudden, despite SK having all the vision in the beginning, they see nothing now. They only have 1 ward down towards the bottom side, but it's not actually going to use or give them much. So all of a sudden, they might get a bit desperate. But Adam making a bit of a mistake. He thinks he's safe here to actually walk in because they just got the vision. He's going to be forced to use the ultimate, get out of there. That is a little bit of a win for SK. They're going to push in the mid lane, and then through the pressure they get in mid lane, they're going to try and move forward. But the problem is right now, SK very much in the back. BDS is still together, and then you have one hero right here who wants to go for a play. But as you can see, it becomes very over-eager with no one in a position to actually follow off. Exakick might get a few autos off, but the rest of SK is caught way back in the back line. So that becomes really easy for BDS to set up the first kill. And this is what you also get from the vision control. BDS gets to have all the information. It doesn't stop SK from looking for the play though. They're still desperate, but they've held onto their cooldowns. And this here is SK. You might think, okay, we can finally start taking it. But as soon as the bailout from Renata gets put on Crownie, as you can see right here, even if they trade back onto him, he will just get put back alive with the revive and clean up the fight once again. It's an interesting fight. Zap almost gets another kill, but it's just something very basic that we see some teams actually mess up, but BDS at this point really just have mastered.
They have, and it's nice to see that there's a lot of different aspects of the game seemingly that BDS has control over, be it target selection, be it protecting the carry and the comp that they've drafted for themselves, be it stacking the dragons. You know, they make it a very cohesive plan, hard to puncture.
Yeah, and being patient enough, and especially in the replay that you just showed us, GB, because when I look at the way DOS was looking to engage here, I think you just need to be a little bit more patient. And to me, this is what SK has been missing, and this is where I was hoping that they would have learned maybe during the week that they had, because SK, from what we've seen in the regular season, if they don't crush the early game, they don't come back, and they don't actually know how to play from behind. And looking at the game state at that point, it was fairly even. So I think being a bit more patient, being a bit more cautious in the way they approach the game, maybe could have been more helpful, because the game escalated from there.
Yeah. It's true, and it's sad because it's kind of similarly to the way we saw them lose games at the tail end. I don't even want to say the tail end. Literally after week 1, unfortunately, after we were all on the hype train still, they never found their groove again. Maybe they find it in the next one. They are going to go to the blue side, which is, I guess, usual, although yesterday we saw them move to the red side, but I don't really think that SK is the kind of team that would go for that.
Yeah, I think SK, they're going to look for different resources here. They probably want to have a draft that's actually playable in terms of range into the enemy team. It was really difficult fighting into a Jinx with the long range you get when the Q and lethal tempo is stacked. It's really difficult fighting into the Syndra because of a scatter of the week, especially when you play these champions like Xayah, like I was about to say Annie, but it's the Ahri as well. That really has to put herself in there too, right? So I think from the side of SK, create something that allows you to buy some more space. Maybe you just have to go back to what worked for you in winter, which is full send it on bottom lane, get a tank on Irrelevant instead of the Rumble, and have something that can actually create space for your carries that allows you to play a team fight.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
I agree with that, and finding maybe more ways to skirmish in the early game and get this advantage maybe earlier on, focusing on another side of the map also, because top lane didn't work so well this time. But I would keep the same basis. Maybe prioritize on other champions given that they're going to be on blue side. But yeah, try to impact the map another way, but get decisive in the early game for me.
Okay, let's see if they listen to our advice. I'm sure their coaches know better. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, it's game 2 between BDS and SK.
top laners now find themselves in a 1v1. The equalizer comes down as well as the overheat. The ignite's been ticking onto Adam. He's got some extra movement, but he's not got the damage. And that is the power of the Rumble.
Maybe SK can look for a pick beforehand.
Oh, they're looking for one right now. There's the charm coming in. No Cyclone, remember, but you've got yourself the cease and desist. There's going to be the ultimates comboing in. They trade it back 1-for-1. Good flash from Sertuss means he does not get hit.
No, I was there. Let's connect mid.
Bien. Look, Wukong no W, Wukong no W. It's good.
Revive. Coming behind. Revive.
One target.
Can I relook?
Kill Ahri.
She's dead.
I'm fine.